Greetings and salutations to everybody out there in podcast land. This is the Judo Suey podcast, and I'm your host, Judo Dave Roman. Very excited to be back behind the microphone once again. I'm always excited to be back behind the microphone. I know it's been a few weeks here, but I've just, again, this scheduling here with people coming over to the house and stuff like that, it's very hard for me to get in the podcast. Plus, my real life has just been so full. It's been really crazy with my son. He's got band practice and he's got football games and rehearsals and things like that. So my weekends are pretty full when they're here. And even when they're not here, I've got work going on. And there's just a lot going on. I've got a very, very full life. And it got very full really over the past, since school started just a couple of months ago in August. So it's been pretty crazy for me, and it's not been easy for me to get behind the microphone. I'm hoping again in about 2 weeks to have my friend Judo Joe join the podcast once again. We'll tackle some more subjects that we didn't get a chance to tackle in the last episode because it just ran so long that I just didn't want to make it a 2+ hour podcast. But I'm back. I'm very excited to be here again, and there's a lot of things that I want to cover. Judo related, I don't anticipate this being a very long podcast. Well, long by my standards. I have to believe maybe I'll try and keep it around 35, 40 minutes and get in, get out, talk about what's on my mind, and hopefully you guys will find some enjoyment out of that. Now, I was just talking about Judo Joe, and I happened to be training with him at his club, which is Ybor City Jiu-Jitsu in Tampa. That was about a couple of hours ago. They had an open mat for judoka, and there were several different clubs that came to Ybor City from different places, some from the University of South Florida in Tampa and the University of Florida in Gainesville. And a couple of other clubs, I believe 2 individuals came from Metro Orlando Judokai and some from GTFL out in Venice, Florida. There was about 30 people on the mat, and I got to tell you guys, I have not trained with that many people in a very long time. I would have to say it's been about 8 years for me, and I know there's some listeners out there and many of you who probably 30 adults on a mat is a normal class, but that has just not been my experience. And it was incredible. I mean, well, for one, the one thing I learned is that I'm really not in very good judo shape at all anymore. I've said it on this podcast before that being an instructor, even an assistant instructor, tends to take away from one's ability to train regularly, especially if you've got a full life like myself. But I didn't realize how far I had fallen off. I posted some videos on my Instagram account, which you can see at La Vida Judoka. And in those videos, I was exhausted, especially the last video when I was doing randori with Judo Joe's wife, Stephanie. I could barely keep my arms up. I was moving like a slug. I just was extremely tired. But I learned a lot that my fitness needs to be improved dramatically. I did randori with this fellow, the sensei of GTFL out in Venice. His name is Simon Childs, and he's got a profile on Judo Inside. So, if you've got a profile on Judo Inside, you got to be pretty good. And I believe he used to be on the British national squad. I think he has quite a record. And I tell you what, man, it is a whole different experience to do randori with somebody who is so experienced. He's a Rokudan, which let me get this out there. This is the first time in my life that I've come across a Rokudan who is not wearing their red and white. Take that for however you want to take it. But this guy was incredible. I felt stupid out there doing randori with him. I really did. I mean, there was just nothing I could do. And granted, he's a bigger, taller, stronger fellow than I am, but it didn't matter. I mean, he could have been my height, and he just would have made me look ridiculous. And I just felt so stupid. I was like, God, what am I doing on this mat with this guy? But he was a very nice gentleman, and I'm very pleased to have met him. And the sensei for Metro Orlando Judokai, Doug Clark, I was really impressed. He's older. I mean, he's got to be in his 50s. And man, his judo's phenomenal. I just didn't know how good he was. I've been familiar with him, but I've never really seen him do judo, and I was impressed. I want to get out there over. I believe his club's over in Oviedo, Florida. I want to check it out and maybe learn from him. Well, obviously I would learn from him. He's so much better than me. But look, this was just an awesome experience. I want to thank everybody out in Ybor City Jiu-Jitsu. That's Judo Joe Kaiser and Victor out in Ybor City, and you got Joey Best and Chris Reed. I really appreciate them opening their doors like this and giving all of us in the Central Florida, South Florida area an opportunity to get together and train. And it was just an awesome experience. The class was like over 2 hours long, and that's part of why I was exhausted too. I mean, 2 hours plus of judo will get, even when I was in shape, that would get me. But yeah, it was just an awesome experience, and I'm really appreciative of that. If you want to check out the videos, again, it's on my Instagram, @LaVitaJudoka. So before I get into the rest of this podcast, I have what I like to call the housekeeping items to get to. Just this is a part of the podcast that I'm sure most of you just fast forward through to get to the other judo-related stuff. But I like talking to you guys, and that's what I'm going to do because, damn it, this is my show. So I finished a show just the other night called Mindhunter on Netflix. I highly suggest you guys watch that. I'm not going to give it away, but it's a fabulous show, and it's based on the FBI, and they're learning how to profile serial killers. Fantastic show. Highly recommend you watch it. I finished Orange is the New Black a couple of weeks ago. It took me months to watch every single episode, but one of the greatest shows on Netflix. Now I see why it's won all these rewards. I stayed away from it for years because I thought it was just only about women's prison and how interesting could that get. But that's a really good show. A lot better than I would have thought, especially for a guy like me that likes action stuff and things of that nature. Fantastic show. Lots of great drama. Lots of great funny points. Speaking of action stuff that I like, I finished the Defenders. Ooh. That show sucked. I mean, it sucked at the end. It was really promising in the first 4 episodes, and it was really interesting to me. And if you're a Marvel fan and you like this kind of stuff, I do suggest you watch it. But good God, that show, I don't know if it's because I'm over the whole ninja thing. Maybe I finally grew out of my fascination for ninjas and thinking that they're awesome. I don't know. It just, the end of the show was just not very well done, and it was a big disappointment. But it's almost like that's what I've come to expect from every Marvel show, with the exception of Daredevil. So I finished that last weekend. I went out to the movies with my wife and saw Blade Runner 2049. It was good. It wasn't great. I would wait for DVD or Blu-ray. Is it? I don't even know what it is anymore. I don't. Yeah, it's Blu-ray. So wait for Blu-ray or 4K or whatever streaming. All right, I got some listener reaction that I want to get to. I did receive some items, mostly some messages saying, "Hey, doing a great job on the show. Keep the good work." I really appreciate all those little messages. I'm not going to read all of them. I want to give Ming from Hong Kong a shout out. I think he's the first listener of the podcast from Hong Kong. I mean, based on the stats and stuff that I have privy to through Podbean. I got this message through Instagram. So Ming, I appreciate you checking out the podcast. Thank you very much. And just a reminder to all of you, messaging me on Instagram is the absolute worst way to get a hold of me, because a lot of times the Instagram messages are filtered. Unless I'm following you, a lot of those messages, they don't show up in my inbox until I actually open the inbox and see. I think it shows it as unverified message or a message request. So a lot of times I don't see those message requests until like a week later. So I apologize for anybody who reaches out to me via Instagram and I'm slow to reply. It's like the worst way to get a hold of me. The best way to get a hold of me is at judochopsueyshow@gmail.com, where I received this really interesting email from a female listener, but goes by the name of Crazy Sexy. She goes, "Dear Dave, I think you're so handsome, and I'd love nothing more than to tie you up and while you till I What do you think? XOXO." Wow. Okay. What do I think? I think I'm at a loss for words. That's what I think. This is a joke. Are you kidding me?
Come on, get out of here!
Somebody's playing a prank on me. All right. I received another email regarding my last episode. It goes, "Dear Judo Dave, in regards to does Judo factor into BJJ promotions? What about all the Judo black belts that get promoted to BJJ blue belt very quickly?" And to your point, anonymous emailer, I do get that. I don't think I was very clear in my explanation of that, and if I wasn't, I apologize. I do agree with you. There's a lot of Judo black belts that once they get into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they're very quickly promoted to blue belt. But I guess my point was the Judo skill set itself is not a factor in the promotion. So just because somebody can do Uchimata or Ogoshi or things along those lines, a jiu-jitsu instructor does not look at that and say, "Oh, you should be promoted to blue belt because you can do all of this." No, it's because of the, generally speaking, Judo black belts can hang with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belts. So their abilities are being measured on their groundwork ability. So if there was any confusion there, I apologize. And that's the point that I was talking about with Joe, or when I asked him that question, does his judo abilities ever factor into a potential promotion of brown belt? And he said no. And I think it should be that way. But the reverse is not true in my opinion. If I see a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt come into judo and they're showing a lot of proficiency on the ground, or maybe a purple belt, not so much a blue belt, but my point is, if a jiu-jitsu guy comes into judo, his abilities can definitely factor into a very quick promotion to at least Sankyu, in my opinion, if they're showing an aptitude for judo. I got another message on my Instagram from Cody. And if you guys, by Cody, I'm talking about the host of the Cody Jitsu podcast, which all of you should be listening to. I think he does an excellent job. It's a relatively new podcast. It's one of the few martial arts related podcasts that I listen to. So if you have a chance, hell, just stop listening to this and go check out Cody's podcast. He sent me this message on the Instagram because he wanted to share a photo of it was a judo contest, and the winner of this contest won by with omoplata. Now, if you guys remember in my last episode, Joe and I had discussed whether or not Ashi Sankaku Garami or omoplata to you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys was legal in a judo tournament. Well, Cody sent me this image through Hatashita Sports Judo on their Instagram page, and this judoka clearly won. It was definitely a judo contest, and he clearly won with this technique with omoplata for a submission. He held him down. It was almost picture perfect. Did the right thing. Guy tapped out. Ref called Ippon. Winner right there. So looks like it's legal to me, and it's one of those things that I've always argued. It's a technique that I always do if I have the opportunity to do it, and anybody who balks at that, I usually just say, hey, show me where it's illegal. And I've never had any issues of anybody complaining, but if anybody were to do that, that would just be my counter argument. Show me where it's illegal, because like I said in the last episode, the judo book, Best Judo, definitely demonstrates this technique. So I got to believe there's some legality there, and clearly this ref, in my opinion, called it right. Now, before I continue on with the chief topic of this esteemed podcast, I got a favor to ask you guys. And no, it's actually not to solicit or to share the podcast. That would be nice, but that's not what I'm going to ask. I recently recorded myself doing tai otoshi. And when I was doing tai otoshi on this uh, during this recording. It felt really good to me. It felt right. I thought my timing was right. I mean, for a 42-year-old guy, I'm not super quick or anything like that. But I thought everything felt right about the technique. I was throwing somebody or practicing with somebody, throwing on a crash pad, somebody who's about 30 pounds heavier than me. Because I'm a lightweight now. I'm about 154 pounds right now. I've probably dropped about 10 pounds over the past 4 or 5 months or so. But it felt right. But when looking at the video, something's not right. And I can't figure out what it is. Now, I understand my Tai otoshi will never look like Neil Adams. That's the gold standard as far as I'm concerned. I know maybe some of you other guys may argue other people, but for me, I love the way Neil Adams does his Tai otoshi. I don't expect to look like Adams, but there is something about my Tai otoshi that I can't figure out what I'm doing wrong. I suppose to somebody who is not very experienced with judo, they may look at it and say, hey, it's fine, there's nothing wrong there, but I need somebody, I'm sure there's many people listening out there with a critical eye that can take a look at my Tai otoshi and point out what's wrong with it. It just, I don't know what it is. There's like this herky-jerky motion. I can't quite figure it out. It's not as smooth as I would like it to be. So I'm going to share this link to the podcast YouTube page, and I'm going to put it up there. And perhaps it's only going to be about a 5-second video, so it's not like you have to sit there and watch a bunch of dialogue or anything like that. It's just going to be one technique. Maybe it would be better for me to put it in a GIF image. I don't know if that's better. Probably not. But I'll put it up on YouTube, and I'll link it on the podcast show notes. And maybe you guys can take a gander at it and let me know what's going on with my Tai otoshi, because something's not right in my opinion. And I'm curious to see what you guys see, or curious to hear what you guys see. Now I want to get to the meat and potatoes of this episode. And I would like to have a discussion on World Judo Day, which is October 28th of this year. And I'm going to follow that up with an event that's happening, an IJF World Tour event that's happening on that same weekend in Abu Dhabi. It's the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam. And I'm going to bring up a discussion that's going to be a little bit controversial. And I'm sure it's going to ruffle some feathers. But I feel it needs to be said, and this is an issue that's been an ongoing issue for a while, and what I need to talk about, in my opinion, needs to stop as soon as possible. Since 2011, the IJF has been celebrating World Judo Day, which coincides with the birthday of Judo's founder, Jigoro Kano, Dr. Jigoro Kano. Since 2011, the IJF and World Judo Day has had a theme that's supposed to preside over the idea of a single day where judo is observed throughout the world. In 2011, the theme for World Judo Day was respect. In 2012, it was Judo for all. 2013, it was perseverance. 2014 was honor. 2015 was unity. And 2016 was Judo for the World. The theme for World Judo Day this year is courage. So you have themes like unity, honor, Judo for all, respect. And these are ideals that are embodied in Judo's principles that Judo's founder, Jigoro Kano, wanted to have as part of principles that encompass what judoka are all about. Now, if you want to take a look at what World Judo Day is about or more information on it, you can go to www.worldjudoday.com. It's a sister site of the IJF.org website, and I believe there's several different languages that you can click through on this page. You could take a look at the different links that they have on this site for World Judo Day, and they basically what they do is they highlight different clubs around the world celebrating World Judo Day and doing different activities that involve an outreach or just training on that day, and it's just a single day maybe Christmas for judoka or something like that. It's a single day where we set aside and, we do outreach or we take part in judo or something along those lines. I know some clubs do outreach to their local communities. It's just about bringing awareness to judo, and I think that's a really, really good thing. For myself, it lands on a Sunday, and my Sundays are usually pretty busy, especially between the hours of 12 p.m. and about 4:30 p.m. I'm sure you guys know what that means for me. But hey, if there's a local club around here that's open for a judo session, you can be sure that I'm going to be there. And if not, I'm going to be watching the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam, and I'll do some ukemi in my driveway in honor of World Judo Day. How about that? Now, speaking of the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam, this is a IGF World Tour event that's going to be happening the same weekend as World Judo Day. So it's going to be happening from October 26th through the 28th. And it's going to be well participated. It's a big tournament. It's been a Grand Slam event for a number of years now. However, there is an issue that was brought to my attention that I think is absolutely despicable. And I'm going to talk about it here. And look, I want to say I have a lot of respect for the people in the IJF. I think they've done a great job, especially with banning leg grabs. In all seriousness, yeah, I think the IGF does a tremendous job. I think their production and their presentation of judo to the rest of the world is superb. So, and I know there's people, I don't know who you all are, but I know there's people in the IJF that listen. And I appreciate the fact that you listen to this little podcast over on the other side of the world, and it means a great deal to me. All that being said, I came across an article a couple of days ago from the Times of Israel, and this is something that has gone on for several years, and in my opinion, it needs to stop immediately. And somebody at the IJF needs to have the cojones to take a stand against this kind of nonsense. So here's the headline from the Times of Israel. Israel says judo team barred from wearing national emblems in United Arab Emirates. The article goes on to say, Israel on Monday denounced the decision by the organizers of a major judo tournament in Abu Dhabi preventing its team from wearing national emblems and from playing of its national anthem. Organizers demanded that the 12 Israeli judokas participating in the mixed Abu Dhabi Grand Slam from October 26th to 28th will not wear ISR on their uniforms, and that the Israeli national anthem will not be played if they win, according to Israel's sports minister. Quote, the demand to appear without symbols is contrary to the mandate of international sports associations, the main aim of which is to separate politics from sport, Culture and Sports Minister Miri Regev wrote in a letter to Thomas Bach, president of the International Olympic Committee. It is the obligation of any country which has the privilege of hosting an international competition to allow the competing athletes to represent the country honorably while ensuring their security. Now, the article goes on to talk about how Israel and the United Arab Emirates do not have diplomatic relations, as with the case of, which is the case with many Arab countries. That's not important. I don't care. I've heard that argument before, and I think that argument is bullshit. And I remember last year, the article goes on to talk about how Or Sasson of Israel was refused a handshake after defeating Egyptian judoka Islam El-Shababi. And, you know, look, I'm not going to get political here, but this is a serious issue to me. And this goes against everything that Jigoro Kano stood for. And I want to read a quote that I saw on Reddit, and it was shared by a fellow whose name I won't even try to pronounce. You know who you are. It says, judo should be free as an art and science from any external influences, political, national, racial, and financial, or any other organized interests. And all things connected with it should be directed to its ultimate object, the the benefit of humanity. That is a quote from Dr. Jigoro Kano, and that is what he wanted for judo. That's what he wanted judo to be. Now, look, I gotta say this. Considering this tournament is being taken place on World Judo Day, where the theme is courage, where is the courage from the IJF to stand up against this nonsense, against a group of people, to deny them their right to wear their flag or to play their anthem if they win? Where is the courage from the IJF to just simply refuse Abu Dhabi to have any more Grand Slam tournaments in their country? Where is the person to stand up for those group of people, to stand up for what's right? And look, you substitute any other race, ethnicity, country, and the outrage would be a lot louder. But for some reason, when it comes to Israel, it's like, who cares? They're just Jews, right? I mean, that's the overall impression I get whenever I hear stories like this. It doesn't matter when it comes to Jewish people. And I don't understand it, and I don't care to understand it. I don't care about the Middle East politics and everything that goes on. I'm not saying that Israel is free of blame, but give me a break. You look throughout the history of the world, and it seems like the Jewish people throughout history has just been ostracized, and people accept it. But when it comes to other races and other nationalities and other religions, it's not that big. It's a much bigger deal for some reason. Judo needs to be inclusive and not exclusive. You know, I remember a couple of years ago, actually not more, it was probably about 8 or 9 years ago, we had a girl come into the class. She was probably about 16, 17 years old. She was Muslim, and she came in wearing a hijab. And we were all very welcoming and all very accommodating to her wearing her hijab, because that is what judo is about, to bring people in and accept them for who they are, where they are at. Through no circumstance of their own did they choose to be born in a country where women have to wear a hijab. She didn't choose that life. That's what she has to do. The people who are on the Israeli judo team, they didn't choose to be born in Israel. That is their country. And I think it's a shame to ostracize these people for reasons that go far beyond sports. And politics and sports should not mix at all. Certainly not in this way. Now, I know there's people, lately in the NFL, people are taking a knee during the national anthem. Those are particular individuals taking a stand for something that they believe in. Now, former world champion Yarden Gerbi of Israel had a lengthy post on her Instagram page where she goes into the reasons why Israel cannot boycott this, and they have to go to this event under these conditions, because, as she puts it, and it's true, not attending this competition will cause a problem for the Olympic qualification, and therefore the team must compete. So it's important for Israel to show up here. They've got a very strong judo team led by Tal Flicker in the under 66 kilo category, and they've got Gili Cohen is another strong judoka. I believe she's in the under 48 kilo division. You've got Noah Minsker, who is she's ranked 6th in the world in the under 52 kilo division. I've seen Shmalyov in the under 66 kilo division. He's ranked 8th in the world. And of course, you got Or Sasson, who won the bronze in the Olympics. He competes in the under 100 kilo division, I believe, or over 100. He's ranked 17th in that division. So look, Israel's got some pretty strong competitors. In the under 73 kilo division, you got Tohar Bul. He's ranked number 9. I mean, Israel's got a very strong team, and they need these points in order to qualify for the Olympics. This is again, it's an IJF World Tour event, but to make them wear the generic IJF back patch, to take their flags off of their uniforms, and to not play their national anthem, look, in my world, and in my worldview, that's wrong. And if your response to that is, well, it's only a flag, or it's only a national anthem, or, well, they really don't have diplomatic relations, if that's your response to that, then you're a coward. I'm sorry to say. And I would feel the same way if this was some other country like Saudi Arabia or Egypt or whoever. I would feel the exact same way. It's not right. And I don't want to hear this bullshit that it's not a big deal. Because if you were to tell Saudi Arabia, that girl who wanted to compete in the Olympics, and she did, if you were to tell her, hey, you got to take off your hijab because of safety reasons or whatever, really at the time that was the argument, and people were outraged at the argument. But yet when it comes to Israel, for whatever reason, people don't give a shit. And it's unacceptable to me. Yarden Gerby goes on to say, hiding the flag and our nationality will not hide who we are and where we come from. Everyone knows that the Israeli athletes, with or without a flag. And she's right, because Israel's got a good team. So, for me, for this weekend, I know the United States is sending about 5 athletes, but for me this weekend, I'm going to be rooting hard for Israel, especially for Tal Flicker, who is ranked number 2 in the world in the under 66 kilo division. And let me tell you, I hope he wins every single match by Ippon, and he gets up on that podium and smiles as a chorus of boos rains down, while instead of hearing the Israeli national anthem, the Superman theme starts playing. And for extra measure, as the crowd is raining boos and they're getting really upset, he puts both palms up facing upward and raises his hands in the air to make them boo even louder. I mean, that would be an incredible scene. And then for extra measure, I would love nothing more than to see him reach down into his pants, whip out an Israeli flag, and runs around the arena with the flag around his neck, flag waving right behind him while the Superman theme plays over the loudspeaker and everybody booing him because he's just throwing it in their face, the absurdity of denying their identity in this judo tournament. Now, of course, granted, that's just my rage dream on behalf of somebody else inspired by when Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik used to wrestle in the WWF. And for you guys that don't know the gimmick, the gimmick at the time was that Iran and the Soviet Union were allies, and they would come down to the ring. Both those gentlemen would come down to the ring waving Iranian and Soviet Union flags, telling the American audience to shut up so that Volkov could sing a Soviet national anthem. It was brilliant. Those guys were great heels. And of course, look, I know somebody like Tal Flicker would never do anything to throw this kind of thing in the face of the crowd in Abu Dhabi, because judo is about bringing people together and not being divisive. But of course, I can dream a little bit, can't I? I think that would be awesome, but that's just kind of the wrestling fan in me, typical American type fan, wanting to shove everything in everybody else's faces. But I'm not really like that in real life. I don't talk trash on the mats or anything like that. Maybe on the basketball court when I was younger, but that was about it. All right, so looky here. It's about 34 minutes into the podcast. I said I would keep this podcast under 40 minutes, and I managed to succeed. Hopefully, I didn't ramble on too much about different things. I'm looking forward to this evening. I'm taking my family out to dinner at this place called American Eats. They've got some great hamburgers and some fries and some nice beer selections. So it'll be a nice way for me to recuperate some of the lost weight and proteins and calories that I lost in my 2+ hour session doing judo today. So I had like I said before, had a great time. I'm looking forward to that with my family. Next, I already confirmed with Judo Joe. I'm looking to have him be part of the podcast again in about 2 weeks from this time. And we're going to be, like I said before, continuing the discussions on things that I didn't get around to the last time. I want to talk about the difference between judo and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in terms of fashion. Joe was telling me something interesting a couple of weeks ago about how fashion is a very big thing in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and I thought that was really fascinating. I wanted to discuss that. I didn't really know that. I mean, I know there's a lot of gi manufacturers and stuff, but I just didn't know it was that big of a deal. It was kind of interesting to hear his perspective on it. And I also want to talk to Joe about the differences in how Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu treat being tapped out if you are higher rank versus somebody in Judo being thrown if you're a higher rank than the person you're training with. I want to delve into that. It's something that I didn't get a chance to the last time he was here because, again, I just didn't want to have it to be a 2+ hour podcast. But I'm looking forward to that. We're going to be discussing other things. You can be sure that Joe and I would love to get Joe's perspective on how the training went. Well, it'll be, by the time we talk about this, it'll be 2 weeks. So I'll catch up with Joe on the podcast and we can discuss that. I'm going to be going to the local library to record it. So perhaps the audio is going to be sounding a little bit different than what you're used to. I simply can't have a co-host in my home, and pretty much when that happens, then I have to pretty much tell my family to shut up and not make any noise and got to get the dog out and stuff like that. So I don't like doing that to my family because they're nice people, because they're my family. All right, so with that, I'm going to shut this thing down. I hope you have a great week. I hope you have a great time training in your local classes, whether it's Judo or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Sambo or whatever the case may be. Train hard. Stay safe out there. Until next time, I'm out.
Oppan Gangnam Style. Gangnam Style.